But we have some really interesting news, of course, right? We have DeAndre Hopkins gets released by the Arizona Cardinals. As we want to do here at Sumer Sports, we were quite prescient about this. We have an article on the website from April 18th. Why hasn't DeAndre Hopkins been traded yet? There were a number of reasons for him not being moved, either before the draft or, even before he was released. I mean, he had a $19 million cap hit, as well as a sort of $14.5 million cap hit the following year. There aren't even that many teams, and you have to be cap compliant before you make a trade. And a lot of these teams, when they want to make a trade, will have to make, and teams that are going to sign him are going to have to do this as well. They have to make cap space through means, and almost all of those means, whether that be a contract restructure or, for example, in the case of Kansas City, a contract extension of somebody like Chris Jones, that requires upfront money. A contract extension is going to give rise to bonuses like signing bonuses and roster bonuses and things like that. The signing bonuses, you can prorate them cap wise, right? You can make them cost, 1/5 if it's a 5-year deal over the course of each of those 5 years. But ownership has to pay that out. And so to me, that makes it really tough. And, if the Cardinals were looking for a day 2 pick for Hopkins, it was just simply too much to offer a day 2 pick itself worth, on the order of $10 million a year in value, and then surrendering $33 million to Hopkins, or something that would require ownership approval there. So that that is the reason that he's been released. The Cardinals released him before June 1. We have an article coming out on Tuesday at sumersports.com, which, by the way, firstly, we thank you all for coming and commenting here on the side here. Thank you all for coming. By the way, Sumer Sports on Twitter, Sumer Sports on YouTube, and anywhere you get your podcast, subscribe, rate, and review. We really appreciate your thoughts there. For a team to acquire him, it's going to require resources, and for a player who's let's say this is declining. He caught 2 passes against man coverage, which we'll talk about a little later, over the course of the last 5-6 weeks of the season. And now some of that was because Kyler Murray was injured. But when you're the number 1 receiver for a team, it doesn't really matter who your quarterback is. You have to be a little bit more productive than that against man coverage. So we have seen a little bit of a decline in his play. And he's not necessarily the type of receiver that fits on a lot of these teams. For example, in Kansas City, like, his contested catch rate would be almost twice that of some of his contemporaries there. And so it's just like a not a styles make fight situation for Kansas City, for example, to go in with him. Now, he is going to visit Detroit soon here, it sounds like, from what I'm hearing from sources. He also will garner interest. But sort of good questions here. For example, Beat the Gamer 99 saying, could D-Hop be a 1-year deal that's a small wide receiver money because he's essentially already being paid by Arizona to this year, ring chase and hit the free agency market? Maybe. And I think some people postulate this like an $8 to $10 million deal. I think a lot of these guys, they look at their peers and they say, what is that guy making? And if I'm better than that guy, I'm going to make that money. And there is obviously, there are situations where people do take less money. I would say that we, as the public, over-index on that outcome far more than it actually happens. When he looks across the line and sees, if he were playing, for example, for Kansas City, he looks across the line and sees Odell Beckham Jr. on a different team getting, 15 to 18 million in a contract. He's not going to be happy if he's making 8 to 10, given his stature relative to the rest of the league. Thank you here with Tage Seth, EE solo climbing. I did take a rock climbing class once in college, in grad school. And because of various things, I think I dropped out within the first week. But, that was my own, that's how close I got to solo climbing. So with Hopkins here, I think, Buffalo certainly makes sense. Kansas City, if he can make the money work, makes sense, but they don't have a ton of cap space. They also have to, extend Chris Jones. I think Detroit makes a lot of sense given Jamison Williams is missing the first 6 weeks. We don't even necessarily know if he's any good. Amon-Ra St. Brown, they lose Chark. They get Marvin Jones back, maybe a little redundant there. But I don't think that's necessarily a big enough contract. to be prohibitive there. So there are plenty of opportunities for him. But as we said in this article, again, if you go to Sumer Sports, a lot of the stuff we are writing about on a day-to-day basis in the zone here do happen. So in that article, we talk about how it wasn't really going to happen for him to get a trade just because the way that the world works. So